Part of the problem is that we are socialized into believing that certain structures around us are infallible and untouchable. And I think that policing is one of those. I think that politics is one of those. There is this sense, the justice system is another, and these are three of the areas I really look at in the book. There is this sense that there must be kind of processes in place. And I think a lot of people thought that, and that's why a lot of us buy the rotten apple kind of dismissal. So explicitly, that was the terminology used by the Met Police after a serving officer had raped and murdered Sarah Everard, that he was a bad apple. And it seems like everybody has forgotten the second half of that phrase, right? Which is, the saying literally goes, one bad apple spoils the whole barrel. So ironically, the whole point is that it was never about one bad apple, and the statistics overwhelmingly show how brazen it is to use that term, bad apple, when you're discussing the Met. It wasn't just that Wayne Couzens' own colleagues literally nicknamed him the rapist. In the previous 4 years, 2,000 Met police officers had been accused of sexual misconduct. And when you look at those who are, you find that over half of Met police officers found guilty of sexual misconduct keep their jobs. Only 1 in 18 Met police officers accused of sexual assault ever faces formal action. The police officers who were supposed to be guarding the crime scene with the dead bodies of Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman took photographs of their dead bodies and shared them with misogynistic and racist jokes in a WhatsApp group with 41 other officers. So the idea that this is just a few bad apples, it's isolated, that Wayne Couzens was an aberration, nobody could have seen him coming. It's not just that we're frogs in tepid, slowly boiling water. It's that people in positions of power who are very much aware of the system failings are going, no, 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 the water's cool, and they're given a platform to do that by a media that in some cases is complicit in sustaining the problem. So the problem, I think, is that these systems all support and reinforce one another, and they all help to cover up the institutional failings, the racism, the sexism, so that we don't get to acknowledge it. So let's say that you recognize these problems in policing, for example. You go, we need to take action. It's an institutional problem. Who has the power to require that kind of institutional change in policing? Our politicians do. So you turn to politics to find help and support in this, and you suddenly realize that only 6 of our 23 cabinet ministers are women, a third of our MPs are women, a quarter of the members of the House of Lords, and you find that 56 of our serving MPs in Westminster are currently under investigation themselves for sexual misconduct, and that when that story broke, the business secretary was promptly dispatched to the news outlets to use the term bad apples to describe the problem. So you think this is not necessarily an institution that will fix it. So you turn to the place that you turn to force politicians to take action, which in a kind of healthy, functioning democracy is the media. Enough media pressure can force political action. So you think the media is the institution that we can turn to here. And then you realize it's the media itself that is telling us in our biggest selling daily newspaper that Angela Rayner is crossing and uncrossing her legs to distract the Prime Minister in Parliament. You realize that they are in some ways perpetuating and exacerbating the misogyny faced by women in politics. So it's recognizing, I think, the interconnectedness between the different institutions that's really key to tackling that sense of normalization. And it's not an accident. It's not an accident that we don't see it. It's deliberate. It's partly an overt, brazen cover-up when we're told explicitly there is no misogyny in the Met. But it's also something that happens naturally when the concentrated power and privilege in the hands of a very small minority of people is replicated across different institutions that all work to protect each other.